your speed jackets and stuff.
Well, we've given it a few more minutes. Why don't we start with some introductions from we'll call it the panel here. Um, First off, I guess, I'm the one who emailed everybody the Zoom link. My name is Dylan. I'm the treasurer of the New York Paddle Sports Racing Association. And oddly enough, I also got my start paddling in college with Paul Smith's College back in about 2011. And with that, I'll give it to Joe.
Hey, I'm not a college paddler, but I've been paddling since I was college aged. Um, all sorts of stuff, outrigger, marathon, even tried sup a couple times, dragon boat once. Uh, but more recently, I've been living in Ithaca, and I teamed up with Terry when he started dragging me out to paddle with these kids that were interfering with my training schedule, and it turns out that's actually really fun. So it's kind of become a bit of a passion of mine.
Uh, Dylan, I guess I'm next. So I'm Terry Kent, and let's see, I've been doing this a long time before college age. I first did the 70 when I was 13 years old with Bill Swift, and about when I came up here at Cornell about 15 years ago, I reached out to the head of the concrete canoe team at Cornell and said, "Hey, do you guys need any help paddling?" And it turns out none of them had ever been in a canoe before, except one kid from Spain, and so they were very anxious to get some help. And then that led to a 10-year or 8-year trajectory of me figuring out that college students were not there to become as stupid about racing as I was. They were there to have fun. And it wasn't until the outing club came in that really rocked home to me. And Joe's been perfect in this because he also shares in the fun concept. And that's really, I think, the basis behind this is get kids out in boats, give them skills, help them to feel in control. And then, you will find a couple crazies like Meghan and Johannes who will, want to go out and do the nutty racing thing. But you're not getting them unless you have the basis of a bunch of kids having fun.
Thanks, Terry. Megan, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Megan. I'm one of the aforementioned college kids. I am involved with the Cornell Outing Club and specifically help out with the organizing of bringing our club members to races and trying to organize practices and things on the inlet with a lot of help and guidance and skills from Joe and Terry and boats.
Thanks. And Johannes, would you like to share
Yeah,
your story as well?
yeah, I'm Johannes, and I guess I also started paddling with the Cornell Outing Club. I guess it's been 3 years now, but I did the 90 miler with the club and got taught how to hold a paddle by Joe and Terry, and then since then I've gotten more and more into it. And now I'm graduated, but I'm still in Ithaca, so I'm helping out with paddle practices still, and just I've gotten really into also just even as someone who's not that experienced, helping out other students at the just starting out paddling and getting into the sport and showing them how fun it is. So, yeah.
I'm a fifth year also. I forgot to say that. I'm still a student. But I I've been here for a hot sec.
Thanks, guys. With that, Joe and Terry, would you guys like to share a bit about, your experience in engaging with the Cornell Outing Club? I know, Terry, you started a bit with the fun anecdotes, but if you'd like to expand on that a bit.
Well, I said briefly, Gary, say that it's what the major draw that seems to be universal around all the students that we work with is um, the adventure and excitement and idea of going to do the 90 miler. Like that's a consistent thing. And the kids like being in boats too, but I think uh, now that we've figured out that we can establish the 90 miler as a goal uh, for young people to go do as like an accomplishment in the outdoors, in nature as like a competition against themselves, along with some like fun camping and hanging out with their friends. That sort of thing, I think, like sells itself and brings in the next generation. Like the kids that have done it once, they tell their friends, they come, they show up to practices, they enjoy it, they move on. So like that's going to be the centerpiece, I think. So we're all talking about this got started because we were the 90 miler became a goal race for these university students. But, Terry, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to pick up. I'll see if something as stupid as putting your phone up against the camera works. That's one of the first Cornell Outing Club canoes on Middle Saranac Lake, and I showed up. They came to me about a week before the 90 miler and said, "Hey, we're going to go do this 90 miler thing, and I heard you might be able to help us learn how to paddle." And that was one of the smarter boats they had. Yeah, it was just these miserable old river running vinyl boats, and managed to find them. A couple of the teams some decent 4-man canoes, and then that one was left over a 17-foot Grumman with boards tacked on top of the gunnels for the kids to sit on. And I showed up, and Brian looked at them and said, "Terry, this isn't going to work. They're not going to make the cutoffs." And he was pretty upset about it on the first night. And then by Sunday, he came up to me and said, "Terry, these kids are awesome. They have such a good attitude. They're smiling the whole time, even though I can see blood on some of them. And this is fantastic. We want to see him back." And that's really kind of the ethos of the thing. One thing I have to mention before we go too much farther is a lot of times Joe and I will go down to Cass Park where the students paddle out of, and we'll start patting each other in the back, saying, "Wow, look at all the kids that came out tonight." And none of that happens without an inherent leadership structure within what other student group you're working. So, that's Meghan and Johannes and other students who each year pass the mantle on to the next crop of kids. And it's those students who make it happen, and they're the ones that organize all the students going up to the 90 miler. If that was me or Joe, it would be a disaster. And so I say that just so if you're working with other college groups, having some structure within that college group of leadership and organizational skills is really important. And none of that's going to happen until none of the cool top end kids going to your races and doing better is going to happen unless you have that base of organization there that helps them move forward. And I'd love to get more outing clubs involved, and we're running around trying to support other programs to show up at races. We tried to build some structure in, as evidenced by the collegiate series this year, and which is really organized around what students need, which is competition in September, not May when we're all focused on it. So I'm really happy where this has gotten, but it's been the work of many hands. And so it's been fun to be a part of it.
Megan, Johannes, what do you see? Like what's like the draw that you see like when a kid decides they want to try this, and like how are they when they try their first race?
I think part of what drew me to paddling, I think draws a lot of other people, is people see it as this cool, fun activity you can do outside, but I'd never heard of the concept that you could race these boats. And then when people hear about the 90 miler and other races, but I think the 90 miler particularly, it's that like 3-day adventure through the Adirondacks in this, in this sport that you don't really know exists, but you know that boats are a fun thing. And so it adds this adventure of like, this is a new type of crazy outdoor adventure you can go do. And there, especially with the framework of like the outing club, and Joe and Terry being willing to help out. It's a new type of adventure that you can also learn to do in that few months leading up to it and really feel like you learn a lot. You can do this completely new thing, have an experience you couldn't have otherwise. And I think that really pulls people.
Johannes, when you're talking, I was also just thinking about it's something you get to do with your friends, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The fact that this is not a solo sport for most people is awesome. Like the first year I did it, Meghan was in my boat, and it was two other friends that are still really close friends to this day, and it was this thing that we were doing together. It makes it so much more of an attractive goal when when you're really doing it with your friends. And I
And
think
it's
that,
so much more of an accomplishment too, it feels like, where it's like, oh, this isn't something that I did by myself, it's something that we did together. And it's a real like
oh,
bonding
absolutely.
activity.
Yeah.
Um, I think something that Terry said really quickly that I think is important for like the logistic aspect, which I feel like is where I've ended up accidentally, but in terms of all of the canoe racing is the sort of spring racing. Because when you're looking at like the window that you have to do fall racing, like students come back to school earliest like last week of August. And so we at least have like a pretty quick turnaround to try and get people like ideally in a boat at least once before they do the 90 miler. And so the and so a lot of the like a lot of the like but like when you're looking at the spring, like because like the 90 miler is like the first race they're able to get to, and so then having later fall races, especially after the 90 mile, when you can sort of ride that high of like, oh, we did this cool thing, and we're trying to like have that keep that energy going, um is really awesome. And we were able to get people out to Seneca Monster and Long Lake this year. But in when you're looking at the spring, um, really the like earliest kind of races, like you're looking at like a Wessels, which is during our finals week. And so we're not able to get people realistically out to the races for most of the season. And so like we've been able to send boats to Wessels. We've occasionally been able to send boats to Redmo, which is a downriver race in northern Pennsylvania that happens earlier in April. But I'm trying to push that we can get boats to Canton for this year, which would be really awesome. Um, but the problem is like when it gets warm enough, especially for the flatwater racing and not the downriver racing, is when it's the worst time of year for students to be trying to do things. So like that is a really big thing that we worked with Joe and Terry sort of for advocating for more late season races, because that just like increased our not only our ability to get people to races, but our ability to like increase people's enthusiasm about racing, because it wasn't like this is something that we get to school, you do this thing, and then you never think about it again. Or like the next time that you think about it again is in May, the week before you leave. Um, that just like having those later season races was really, really beneficial for us as a program to like be able to push.
And guys, with that, let me tag on what Meghan said. Joe has been kind of an advocate for this, what I'm going to mention, for a couple of years, and he's done a great job leading it. Because the students came out for the 90 and then two more races in the month of September and early October, this concept really worked. And that was, I forget what we called it, Small Boat Monday or something like that, is we would all meet Monday night, and we'd bring extra boats, extra canoes down, and the students, Meghan would let everybody know about it, and herd cats down there. That was the most successful thing I've seen so far. And if you think about it, it's just perfect. It's a perfect fit, right? Because we're all kind of done winding down our season. We don't mind going out on a Monday night and jumping in with a boat with maybe a a student who's not all that great, or going slow and going next to a canoe and showing them how to steer and how to paddle and things like that. And the turnout was, just our sport's so small that when you see 4 pro boats of students out there under the age of 70, unlike the rest of our races, it's really inspiring. And so I can't help but emphasize that it is like something we just did this year, and wow, is it successful? And we're going to be trying to build upon that of just one casual night a week where everyone's got an open invite to come down and jump in boats. That was really, really successful. Most successful thing that we've seen so far.
It's an excellent example of like a few lessons we've had of how taking the approach that a veteran racer has towards racing is not the correct approach when it comes to like introducing a new paddler to paddling. Like Terry and I, we go out and we grind 100 hours or 50 hours or 90 hours before we ever like go and do a race. We do interval sets. We like practice all this stuff. We don't need that hook that catches us to like drive our enthusiasm. We can do the work ahead of time and then we can go race. So what I have, experienced in the past and seen in the past is like somebody will try to bring in someone new, and they get promised that they're going to have this fun adventure, but only if they put in 50 or 100 hours of work ahead of time to become like this elite racer. So what we're discovering is like, you know, hey, they're 20 years old. They can go do stuff that we can't do. They can jump in a boat and go paddle 20 hours, and with a couple sessions, they're going to be just fine. And really, like what seems to work incredibly well is introduce them to the fun and the adventure and the excitement first, and then show them like, okay, here's how you can progress further if you want to afterwards. So that's why like I think the Monday nights worked us so well because we got a whole cadre of students that wanted more of the same rather than telling them, okay, if you're going to do a race next year, you got to come to all these workouts, and then maybe you'll get the chance to race next spring if you like train hard this winter. Like
Yeah.
that's a completely like backwards style approach to how like a typical marathon racer works and thinks, but it's far more effective.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's a huge point. Sorry, I think it's a huge point that like the because even in the 3 years that I've been paddling with the outing club, this past year we had by far the most success, and I think it was because we were really able to carry the excitement of the 90 miler through to Long Lake and the Seneca Monster, but also just through to these practices of just people did this awesome thing and they really liked it. But a lot of students in the past did the 90 miler and then got back and were just like, well, that was awesome, but now I have nothing else to do with that. And just giving them that like Monday night of we're gonna go get in boats and paddle and learn new things and have some fun was a way to keep that enthusiasm moving forward. And I think that is one of the important and difficult things is capturing the initial enthusiasm of I'm going to do this cool new thing and turning it into, hey, this is something really fun that I want to keep doing.
And it's almost, Johannes, it's almost like here's the next cool thing. Hey, you did this 90-mile race in a 4-man. Want to try a really slick, fast two-man pro boat? And it's like, yeah, sure, of course I do. So I want to do my demographics rant with Meghan and Johannes on the phone or on the Zoom to have them tell me I'm right or wrong. Earlier this year, I saw a post from the head of IMG sports, and they run a bunch of camps to try and prep kids for varsity to get into colleges and get recruited for varsity sports like soccer and whatnot. And he was saying there's 8 million varsity athletes in high school, and there's 500,000 varsity spots in D1. And so his whole premise was we need to add more varsity sports in D1, which, for the head of IMG is pretty self-serving. But the point is there's a huge amount of kids who are serious about sport in high school, and there's this much opportunity for them in college. And so my observation is you get a lot of kids in school who have uh, uh, gotten used to the idea. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to be kind of semi-serious about something. That's just an assumption, right? I'm going to do something many days a week. And the university isn't providing that much structured opportunity for them compared to how many kids think that way. So there's one opportunity for us. The other thing, I heard a podcast from some of the top pro cyclists in the country. And they were talking about a demographic shift they've seen in their events. It used to be the U.S. Pro or some big deal pro race where all the finances were media generated, right? A company bought the rights and then they sold sponsorship for it, and there's all this money for prize money and crap like that, and that's all gone away. And so the big the whales of these outdoor sports are the participation sports, where that drives the economics of it. This gravel race Joe did, I don't know, somewhere in the Midwest, gravel bike race, where there's 5,000 people paying a $75 entry fee.
Oh, it's triple that.
Or yeah, $225. Then they can have a pro race for a limited group of folks. And we've seen it with Ironman. And I think that's what we're seeing in our sport is Chattajack, 90 miler, the Gorge Challenge out west that has 1,000 racers in it. These massive races where it's not going there to win that's fun. It's going there to participate and have an experience that's fun. And so I think that 90 miler is really key. It gives us an opportunity at the same time when we've got a lot of athletic students, pardon me, you're not kids, students who are not being given the opportunity to keep doing something fun and exciting in college. And here we are, and we're not talking about thousands, but if we can grab a little bit of that action and get them headed into our sport, I think that's really useful. And the student I always bring up is I've got a student from Concrete Canoe who ran a 2:35 or 2:40 marathon at the New York City Marathon this year. He wasn't fast enough to race for Cornell's D1 cross country team, right? Pretty good athlete, doing, I don't know, 70 to 100 miles a week, pretty fit. And yet there's not a place for him in varsity athletics at Cornell University. And so I think that's some of our opportunities. So Meghan, Johannes, I'm kind of curious what you think of that.
The first thing that popped into my mind was a stat that I saw that was talking about how the average marathon time in the US has decreased significantly. But that's a good thing because it means that there's more people who are running marathons. And so I feel like that's sort of what was sort of striking me when you were talking about that, where it's like we have this struggle with when we're putting boats together because we have sort of the two thoughts where it's like we want to have people who are experienced in all of our boats because the more net experience that any one boat has, the more likely that they are to succeed as a team. But that also is splitting up our talent where it's do we want to put all of our fast people in one boat so that they actually have a chance to put up someone like Paul Smith's up to a race, which if for those of you who don't know, Paul Smith has a varsity canoe team. As far as I know, they're the only varsity canoe team in the country. And we consistently lose to them, other than Johannes and I one year. Because we decided that we wanted to win. But we it's this and I think this depends on what the goal of your program is when you're setting it up. But for us, our goal is to is we always split up our talent. Our goal is to have, if not evenly matched teams, at least one person with experience, usually a stern. We're usually putting up C4s to competitions, and so making sure that at least your stern has experience in the boat. And because the goal of most people who are going into our program is to feel like they did something hard and feel proud of themselves, not necessarily to go out and win the race. Though we do have a handful of people who maybe do want to push harder and try and get that extra step, and we're happy to like give them resources and like go out in boats and do that training with them, but that's not the overall goal of our program.
I do feel like to jump in there with the competition aspect, this is something that stuck with me. I don't remember who said it, but this is something that's always stuck with me. There was a couple years ago we were talking about, oh, we could do a separate start at this one race for the college students, and it came right back to me. It was like, no, we want to compete with all the other racers. We don't want to be isolated and have our own little like toy race. We want to be in the real thing. So like, I think the competition, like the feeling and the excitement of competition is there, even if like all the students are realistic. Hey, I'm just starting out. Like, I'm not going to win this thing, but I still want to compete, and that's a real thing. So.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a distinction between just doing it for fun, competing, and competing to win. There's three different things, right? Like there's some people who are there because they just want to do the race. They just want to do the course. And I think a lot of the college students, the vast majority of our teams are not there to win, but they do want to race. They do want to feel like they're competing. And I think that aspect is absolutely still there. Like it's not this wildly competitive, I must win this and I'm going to train for 100 hours. But racing is fun and racing is cool and racing is a thing that, as Terry was saying, a lot of people grow up doing, and then they get to college and then the system decides they're not good enough to get to race anymore. And I think I recognized some of that where I had started college and I'd grown up bike racing, and then Cornell has a bike club, but they're kind of small, and I never ended up joining. And so I hadn't done a race until I got in the canoe in my junior year of college and did the 90 miler. And it was just like racing is a thing that some people really enjoy. And this gives some of those athletes who did that in high school or as kids an outlet to do that again, even if they're not competing for the win.
So Megan, you were mentioning how we, distribute talent through the boats or experience. And I definitely, uh, that is something like as a coach, I guess I can call myself a coach. You need to pay attention, to the people that are coming in and, like talk to them all, like kind of understand like what their drive is, like how interested they are in learning something new. I mean, they're all here, they're all learning here, some ready to learn something new. But some people are extra like, I'm going to get in that stern of that boat and I'm going to learn how to do it. And then sometimes like you'll have a handful of people that just, whatever reason, they just grab it immediately. They know how to. It comes natural to them. So like that is definitely an observational skill that I've had to develop where I can, watch sometimes people even on land will just show, what you need to see and make, okay, you're going to try the stern, you're going to try the bow, and then we go out and do um, very limited dry land like basic intro, and then we just get straight to the water. And the whole goal is to like as quickly as possible learn how to have fun and be comfortable in a boat, not to like, okay, we're gonna try to make you learn, you know, drag you to like making a boat go 6 miles an hour in a perfectly straight line straight away. That'll come, but the main thing is definitely like, that initial comfort, that initial feeling I've got control over this boat. I can we can go in circles, we can, bump and bang each other and it's fine, it's okay. We can do practice race starts because those are always exciting. And then intermittently throughout that, like Terry and I can like work with individuals, fine tune a little bit of technique to like avoid injury or like try to like make things a little more comfortable for them. But the main thing is that I found is we have to be very careful about like overflowing with information too fast, too much to all at the same time. Um, and so like Terry and I have learned like there's a set of specifics that are necessary to like enjoy a boat, and the rest of it is going to come with practice, later down the road or just in the race itself, and they're less necessary. So I knowing what those are and being able to identify that and like work through that and not be frustrated because oh, kid A is, doesn't have a perfect forward stroke, all the way from toes to hips, all this stuff. Like that's not necessary to have fun in a boat.
Yeah, I feel like in order to grow, in order to get new fast racers, you need to also first create a new slow racer, right? You can't get people to be fast canoe racers who look like they have 10 years of experience without giving them years of experience. And it is tricky to teach people and let yourself look at them and go, that's good enough for now. That's as far as we need to get right now with their technique, or this is they've learned the essentials of what they need to know to be able to do this goal that they're moving towards, and they can learn the rest later. And I think that is a very important thing to remember, to not always be so focused on reaching perfection or as close to it as you want to get immediately, because that's just not how sports work.
Yeah, and Johannes, it's not how our sport worked when it was maybe bigger and more successful. I'm the oldest paddler here, and I started in the '70s. And you would go to a race, and there would be 100 folks in Alumacrafts or Montgomery Ward Sea Kings, or all manner of canoe, who were just there to go down the course that day because it was in their community. Maybe there's a little whitewater riffle. They're there to have fun. And then there'd be a small group of people with these weird yellow, super lightweight Kevlar looking boats. And it was really those 100 people that formed the base of interest. I mean, the best part of the 70 miler back in the late '70s was watching a Lumacraft start with 200 racers trying to all cram into that inlet. And so this really hits the ethos of what Johannes is talking about, is you need to take your expectations as a racer and throw them in the trash. I mean, I can give an hour clinic on the forward stroke, and no one in this program needs to hear that, especially the first day. You need to think of stuff that you take for granted, like how do I get into a boat without tipping it over, and be able to articulate that, right? And you may never have had to articulate that until you've met someone who doesn't know how to do it. And so you got to watch, how do I teach them how to do a draw stroke? How do I teach them how to make the canoe go straight? And so I think what anyone here could do is go to an outing club armed with a Min 4 at some college or university and invite kids down to, hey, you want to come down and try this cool boat and have some fun? That sounds a little weird as I'm saying it, but anyways, but you know what I mean. Invite them out to, I know canoeing's a part of the things you guys do. We'd like to give you this experience. And they'll get there. And as long as you're mindful of where they are and where they're trying to go to, you're guaranteed success, because they're going to get in that Min 4 and they won't know how to steer it. It's not going to go straight. And by the end of whatever amount of time you spent with them, it will go straight. And if you spend a little bit more time with them, they'll actually feel a rhythm. Might not be as fast as the rhythm, Joe and Dylan feel when they're in a pro boat, but they will feel a rhythm. They'll be in stroke, and they'll feel a tremendous sense of an accomplishment. And we may look at it with our racer heads, which is a really bad place to be, and say, oh, they didn't get to here and they're not doing that. And again, that needs to get thrown out the window, because they have achieved something really cool. They've achieved competency in that boat. And the more you get them back out there and let them have that fun and work with them once in a while, not barraging them with information all the time, they're going to have a great experience and they're going to want more. And then what we've tried to do is set up a framework for them to have that more. One's the 90 miler. If that's too much, send them to the Seneca Monster or the Long Lake Regatta. They'll see other students. They'll realize, that it isn't just them, and that they can make friends and have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So what are some
One other thing that I wanted to note that's a little bit tangential, but something that I'm really proud that our program was able to do this past year, that I've mentioned to Joe and Terry before, was historically because the majority of our racing is C4 racing, Min 4 specifically. We have one Minnesota 3 that we called 3.5 because we put a fourth seat in it. But something that I'm really proud that we were able to do is we have a depth of experience where we like we were saying we try to separate out our experience between our boats, and we often have like slightly more people that are interested than we have boat space for. And what we've ended up doing in races, in like not for the 90 but for shorter races like the Seneca Monster, where we've gotten like wreck canoes and taken two people who don't really have experience at all and put them in a wreck canoe and be like, you won't be able to flip over, just go and paddle. That we were able to transition from that to this year at the Seneca Monster. We had our C4s, and then we had enough experience in those C4s that we were able to pull out two of our most experienced people and put them in a pro boat and let them race. And that was a really great experience for the two of them, built their confidence and their ability to like their feeling of what it's like to be in one of those boats, and just like I feel like opened up a possibility for what we're able to do with our program that I'm really stoked about.
And now both of them are committed to racing in the spring. I've talked to both of them recently, and they were both like actively, yes, tell me about these races that are happening in the spring. I want to race. And so I do agree with you, Megan, that that's a huge thing, giving people that opportunity to making it available to take that next step. Because I think it's very important to let people start in these boats with big groups and not be very good. But some people will want to put in the work to get good at this. And you do still want to give them that opportunity.
So to talk about opportunity, like I've talked about this before in passing with a bunch of people, but like there's barrier to entry in terms of like new people learning to paddle is pretty simple. It's access, it's knowing the thing exists, it's access to equipment, and then access to information of like what to do with that equipment. It's like three things. Not a lot. So we've talked a bit about like how our the outing clubs provide framework for like telling kids that this fun activity exists and bring them to events and bring them to practice and all that. And one of the great things that happened for Cornell was that colleges have a framework for raising money. They have giving days, they have, donors, like they have alumni that want to give back to that experience. So Cornell was able to raise money to buy these C4s. That is not necessarily something that can happen outside of like a larger infrastructure like Cornell or another university. Like that is a very difficult thing to do if you're trying to start a club in a town somewhere and it's just you and two volunteers and no one else, and you're trying to collect some boats together. So uh, that's a big thing that I think that colleges provide in terms of like opening up that opportunity is like helping build this collection of equipment that these students can use that's decent quality, and there's enough money flowing through the system that can help pay for expenses like going to races or uh, you know camping expenses, gas money, all this stuff that's often quite hard to get over that initial hump as a young person learning how to race if you have to pay for all this stuff yourself. So that's like a huge deal with what we're seeing with the whole college framework, and why Terry and I like really want to get all the colleges working together as much as possible to not only like you know uh, help out the other colleges, but it will help themselves grow as well, because they can go to donors, they can go to alumni and say like, hey, we've got this great event going on with 6 universities participating and 150 200 students participating, uh and these alumni might have participated in this in the past, and they're going to want to donate money to this, and that can roll forward in the future for buying equipment, uh creating relationships with vendors and dealers and all this to like help build this economy of uh sourcing equipment, and which gives access to learning how to paddle, which allows this fun thing to happen once they know it exists.
So
Yeah, and
let me jump in and speak to that a little bit, just because that didn't all happen by accident. So I work in development at Cornell University, and I'm a major gift officer. And it took me about 6 or 7 years to kind of figure things out with Concrete Canoe. We got a matching. I found an alumnus who set up a whole matching grant program for our giving day for Concrete Canoe. They were able to buy a boat through that. And then we were able to find some similar matching funds for the outing club, and which gave them the freedom to be able to buy some equipment. The reason I'm bringing this up is yes, those opportunities do exist at colleges and universities. Every college and university you will work with will have an alumni affairs and development staff. They may call it different things, but it's fundraising at the end of the day. And often there will be some loose structure to support the outing club. And the reason I'm saying this is if you run into that and you want some help, please give me a call. And I can help those students figure out how to get things going. It's harder to kind of jumpstart than it sounds, but there's some steps you can take and do a better job of fundraising for your university.
In
Thanks, guys.
terms of like increasing awareness of like not only like what you can do at your university, but beyond that, Joe, do you want to talk about Texas and Michigan?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, this is definitely extracurricular activities, but having seen how uh, interested Meghan and Johannes and other students were in racing, I offered like, hey, I'm going to this really awesome race in Texas. It's a preview race for the Texas Water Safari. If you haven't heard of that, it's this absolutely insane 260-mile nonstop race. Well, some people sleep, some people don't. Uh, in Texas, in the heat with snakes and alligators. And I wanted to go see a piece of that. And so I told Meghan and Allie and Johannes and was there one other student there? I can't remember. We had four of them, I think. But anyways, details matter. No, we can figure that out later. Uh, that again, like kind of bites back into like the whole 90 miler, how it's an adventure, it's an experience. So I was able to link up these students with paddlers in Texas. We were able to get one of the famous six-man Texas Unlimited, high-speed boats. We put three students in there. We had myself and a couple other experienced Texas paddlers in the boat to help get us down the river. And that was, yet again, another example of, this is an event that a student can go do with a little bit of experience if they have that opportunity given to them. And then with Michigan, this was more like the Michigan adventure was definitely something of, hey, I need a pit crew. Do you want to come out and, go watch this cool race and I'll work out the logistics for your travel out there if you pit crew for me in the race afterwards. So that was more self-serving. But if you want a race that like truly draws you and like hooks you as an ultra elite competitive athlete, like the marathon's the race to go to. Because like all of a sudden, like you're looking at what they're doing there. And I'm a paddler too. I could do this. And that really like it's more than any other race. I think the marathon is definitely an inspirational step for like taking to the next level. But again, it's like sort of like that. Talked about opportunity. I guess I'm a sucker for like providing opportunity to other people as best I can, even if like there's extra work involved, which some racers would be like, nah, I don't want to deal with that. But I think putting some effort into that sort of thing it does pay off, and I think it paid off. Meghan went back the next year and did the ensemble herself with Jeff DeFeo. Johannes came out with me that year and um, done the Spikes Challenge out there, and really like that's really like um, well, you know what I'm talking about. I'm starting to ramble here, but yeah, take it away.
Yeah, I've been talking to some folks about going out to Michigan over the summer. Or I have one girl whose parents moved to Houston who I've been talking to Lydia about trying to find a team for us to crew for the water safari this summer. We're just like finding like I feel like genuinely trying to recruit students to crew for you is an incredible idea because they're really excited about it and so it's sort of a like again it's like self-serving but it helps the overall stoke in the sport.
Thanks, guys. So I do want to step in here for a second and try to engage some of our participants. We've had a lot of really great conversations so far. I feel like, to Terry's point earlier, we've kind of thrown a lot of information out there. And so I'm going to pick on Bev real quick because she has her camera on. Bev, do you have any questions? And what were you hoping to learn from this conversation tonight?
Um, Actually, they answered the questions that I was going to have, but I think they have the right approach. I'm much older and also a Cornell alum, and just started paddling a couple of years ago. And when I was at Cornell, I was involved in equestrian sports. Um, but I'm glad to see this happening at Cornell. And one of the questions I had that Jay had answered was, where do you paddle, and what do you use for boats, and how do you supply your teams with boats?
I remember we now have more carbon paddles, but I do remember when we started paddling that like I think there were like one or two carbon paddles for like 20 racers. And so it was like a really big and everyone else used wooden ones. And it was like a really big deal if you got to paddle with one of the carbon paddles.
Access to equipment.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, that transformation has happened in such a short amount of time. Like you were saying, Megan, you'd only been Cornell like 5 years to,
Yeah,
go from 2 to 20 carbon paddles in that amount of time.
pretty awesome.
That's pretty great.
Bev, let
As
me
I
the
think
kid,
all of our racers used carbon paddles in the 90, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've also been able to borrow many from Joe and Terry and other community members, which is awesome.
And
yeah.
to just drive home how effective the outing club's ability to provide us with gear has been, and also with the outing club, it's not just the outing club, it's also the outing club's connections to paddlers who are willing to help. But I raced for I probably raced 10 races over the course of a year before I owned a paddle. And every time I could either take an outing club paddle or Joe was willing to lend me one. And so that it really makes such a huge difference because then by the time I decided that I wanted to spend over $300 on this sport, I knew that I liked it and it wasn't this gamble.
So I want to follow up with something that Joe and I have talked about is, we've tried to make sure that we're giving paddles away at the Seneca Monster to college students, but something we've talked a lot about, and I feel like this is something that could help solve this problem, is all of us have a bucket or in the basement or in the shed a bunch of old carbon paddles, and those are like gold to college paddlers. And we don't even think of them, right? Because they're not in our rotation. And if you don't have them, your buddy does, or some of the older racers around. And if someone had come up to me and I wasn't involved with this and said, "Hey, I've got 4 college kids going down tomorrow. Can I borrow some of your paddles?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let me get my junkers out of the shed." And so keep that in mind when you're trying to find paddles.
I'll ask Ryan if you're there. Kind of the same questions I asked Bev there. Do you have any questions, and what were you hoping to learn from the conversations tonight?
Yeah, so I'm from SUNY Potsdam. With Adam Wheeler, kind of tuning in on the conversation as well. We're looking to start a paddling program here at Potsdam as well. Super, super young, super, super into it. We've sent a couple boats out to the 90 miler so far. You guys have touched a little bit on my questions already, just how to gain that interest to a general body of students already. to just get them inside of a boat and to eventually maybe we have some students who want to go and do the racing aspects, but we're looking to do more that community-based paddling, just exposing people to a new sport. And what were some of the different ways that, or some of the different events rather, that you guys maybe had done to do something like that as well? Because there has to be some support somewhere, some interests maybe outside of the racing aspect as well that might have gone, pardon me, into this as well. I'd have to imagine.
I think if you have like one student as a good contact who can like pull people on a good day for like a regular practice, and then just like regardless of who shows up, just like always having people there. Um, a big thing for us was rides coordination, because like we don't practice it somewhere that's like walkable from campus. So we did have to do some coordination on like having enough cars to get people down there. Where that was a pretty big like barrier for entry for some people. But yeah, I mean, I think just having a regular time and showing up and bringing people out, like even when there's not a lot of interest. Like I feel like our like the Monday night practices that we talked about, we would go out and sometimes it would be like just me and Joe, and sometimes we'd go out and we'd have 12 people on the water. And it really just like depended on the week.
Yeah, that reminds me of a conversation Terry and I had a long time ago where we kind of had this revelation that we had to step back our expectations and not be disappointed and feel like the program or what we were trying to do was a failure because one student showed up and we'd only paddle for 30 minutes. Uh, like that whole thing of, consistent support, being available, and what if one student shows up and that's a success, you can build on that. Because Meghan said, like one of the more important things is like having that one student within the organization that's a leader. Terry touched on this at the start of this conversation. Like student leadership is really important with this. Like the students need to be involved with planning, with logistics, because they're the ones that are going to be able to reach out to students outside the organization. They're going to be able to talk to their friends. They're going to be able to use the communication services within the college to like bring in this new influx of people every single year. If you're, not within that, Terry and I are like Terry's not an outsider to Cornell, but to some extent we're both kind of outsiders. We're providing, extra support, but it really does come down to the students themselves within the clubs to be the drivers to build that interest. So if you find that one person, Meghan was I don't know, you're not the first generation. Like there were others before you that did the same exact thing. So
I think like
uh,
Lily Woodward, I think
yes,
was like the first of our like she came back, I think post COVID, and was like, we did the 90 miler once and we haven't done it in years, and I think we should bring it back. And she was 3 years older than me.
yep, that sounds right.
So Ryan, let me jump in and say you guys have already accomplished a lot. I think I counted 3 boats from SUNY Potsdam. At the 90, I remember running around and trying to talk to everybody and being really impressed with what you had. Couple thoughts. I know we've got a guy helping out with SUNY with St. Lawrence, and there's no reason in my mind why you guys couldn't like go out and practice with them. I know they have a Min 4. I also know the Newman the Newman brothers live up in that area, and they've got a whole shed barn full of boats, and there's a really vibrant marathon community up there. And if you show up, if you can come out on Saturday afternoon on what is it, Joe, the 4th of May,
I think so.
you'll meet a whole bunch of them. And those are people that you can say, hey, we're going out. Would someone come with us? Or, do you have an extra boat or something like that? And I may not be up at that race, but Joe will be, and he'd be happy to introduce you to some of those people. So, if you can come out on the 4th, meet Joe, and he can introduce you to some of the leaders of the community out there. Just, so you have some more helping hands. And then if you get to the point where you want to talk about fundraising, you can talk to me directly, and I'm going to put my contact info in the chat.
And just for correction, it's May 1st through the 3rd is that Canton weekend.
And that's over in Canton on
Um,
the Grass River, and you on the park south of the main street on the
I know
west
St. Lawrence one has historically gone to Canton. It does sound like they're having some weird funding issues through the university because it's occurring during their finals week, and apparently the university doesn't allow for events during their finals week. So I think it's a little questionable whether St. Lawrence is going to go this year, even though they really want to.
But
Just
regardless,
as a
you can meet St. Lawrence because you guys live in the same town. And I think they have their
yeah.
C4 at their boathouse on maybe the Little River. And so there's just all I'm saying is there's resources there with a lot of people doing the same thing as you in that area. And there'd be lots that would love to see you succeed.
And they've got a really good program going up there at SLO. I know Mary Kelly is also up there and helps out with their program a lot. Um, and they've got it's definitely not the biggest, but they definitely have a good crew of I want to say like 8 to 10 racers.
so we've talked a lot about it's getting close to an hour now. This is awesome. I love how canoe paddlers can just jam away and and talk about our sport and not even notice the time go by. But like one final topic I wanted to bring up.
I would love to. I'm sorry. So Potsdam with Adam and Ryan got a question in, and I just want to ask Kristen at the bottom if she has
Oh,
any questions or if there was anything that you were hoping to learn from this as well.
Gosh, thank you. And I'm sorry to be off camera. My children were going to bed and they were creating some hectic scenes. I didn't really come prepared with a question. I was just intrigued by the topic. I always appreciate the enthusiasm that I see from like Potsdam and Cornell and Paul Smith and perhaps self-serving. I'm a woman that just is trying to get her friends involved. So I just thought maybe the same enthusiasm and techniques would kind of travel into my friend group as well. So I've just enjoyed the conversation mostly. So thank you.
well, hopefully it was useful. I think the concepts do transfer to any organization.
Yeah.
It's just colleges is kind of unique for like helping college age students get started. You, me, other people that might be like we're established, we're professionals, we have income, we're looking for fun things to do. It's a little easier to get started, but the same like idea of like, you need to know it exists, like you need access to equipment, you need access to somebody to show you how to do it, like still is really important. And it's got to be fun. So, all that stuff still translates.
And be
I
okay
bought
if
a
they only come
C1
out
off of Facebook Marketplace, and to date, it's still the biggest purchase I've ever.
So, you were saying, Terry?
and be okay if they only come out once every 2 weeks. That's a win.
That's an absolute win. Okay, so like I wanted to quick touch on ideas we have for like growing collegiate sports in the future. Like what are some stuff that we're like looking at for trying to like build on what we've already built through the efforts of so many volunteers and the students. But like what's something iterative we're looking at for 2026?
So in 2025, we launched the Collegiate Point Series, and I think everybody on the call is aware in some capacity. SUNY Potsdam, like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, had a C4 show up to all those races. So from the New York Paddle Sports Racing Association side of things, where we had a poll that went out this winter asking people some of the things that went well, some of the things that we could improve on. We're hoping to run the points champ. We're not hoping. We are running the points championship again this year to kind of to Meghan's point, keep the enthusiasm up for races after the 90. People can take this accomplishment and the skills that they learned and keep applying them throughout the seasons. And there's also been interest from some of the poll respondents in having a larger meeting to discuss, what could adding more races or having a spring season look like. And I don't know that that's going to be what we do in 2026, but it is very encouraging from our end to see that this is something people are thinking about and potentially what they want. So yeah, from a growing the side of things, I guess that's where we're at. I don't know if Megan, Terry, you guys had anything more specific to Cornell that you're working on.
I have something very specific we're working on. One of the things that drives me nuts is when I put 4 kids in a min four, I'm putting the most athletic kid in the bow and the stern because they got to steer the boat. And I always feel so terrible, first for seat 2 and then totally for seat 3 because they can't reach the water. And a lot of times they're small. So I'm working with Dave Yost, who's a brilliant boat designer, longtime designer. And he's coming up with a new 4-man that's kind of loosely based on their cruiser series that you've seen. And I want to be clear on this. The goal of this new design is not to make it that you got to have that boat instead of your min 4. We don't want that. We're not trying to sponsor a nuclear arms race on getting a faster boat. What we're trying to do is design a more comfortable boat for students to learn in. We're sucking in the gunnels hard at seat 3. We're sucking them in at seat 2. We're trying to make a boat that is more fun for all 4 paddlers to use and to learn in. And we got a grant last summer, and we're going to be stripping that thing up. Meghan, Johannes, hear my plea in the next couple months, and over at Cornell. And we're hopeful that Swift will pick it up and put it into production. We're also hopeful that we can make the design open source and have infuse some new boats into the college universe.
Something that I liked that we did kind of off the cuff last year for the Seneca Monster, and this it goes back to the whole paddle thing, is we ran out an email ahead of the Seneca Monster saying, hey, if you show up to the Monster with an extra paddle and donate to a college student, get a discount. So I'd like to make that something we talk about or make, offer as much as we can, for the 90, for all these races. Hey, if you got a stock of paddles, here's a form you can fill out, or here's an email address you can send it to, and you bring 3 paddles to the 90. We slap a name sticker on them, or you do that. You should probably be sharpening your paddles anyways.
Yeah, wait, and to clarify, it's not like giving them to the college, it's just letting the college students use it for one race for an hour.
I really like that idea. And I felt like a lot of people they felt like they were able to contribute in a really easy way, which then, buys, goodwill for the future. But hey, I felt really good about loaning that paddle. Maybe I could, help out with something else because I liked whatever we did there. So that's something I want to work on. And then obviously we need to get back together with as many of the college paddling club group leadership as we can in a call pretty soon, and just talk about 2026 and just plan out what we're going to be doing for coming up to the 90 miler and the point series and the Seneca Monster, and hopefully we can build it up even better.
I do also want to bring up another thing that's less of a current effort, but more of an idea that I've been thinking about, is that something that the Seneca Monster does that I think is really awesome is they let us as students camp there the night
Exactly what I
before.
was about to say.
And that, I think one of the things that is missing in the way that college students are engaging with this sport, and that the points championship has helped with, is that connection between different colleges. And I think it was Paul Smith that was that also camped the night before the Seneca Monster this year, and that was one of the few times that I'd really just sat around with some people from a different college and talked about canoe racing. And obviously, that's not possible for every race, but I think it's something to think about. Giving a space for time that is not just the paddling time, for the college students and other racers to hang out, connect, and get to know each other. I think really that feels to me like improvement that can still be made.
Building community and all that jazz.
Yeah,
Yes.
incredibly important. Thanks, Johannes.
So I'm sorry I keep talking so much, but I was out at Canoecopia last weekend out in Madison, Wisconsin, and I sat I'm spacing on his name, but the guy that owns the paddle sports shop in Milford was there, and we had a long talk about this stuff, and he's really excited to see it going. Then I walked over to the new owners of Zavrel. Were at the show, and they're excited to hear what we have to talk about. And they have a refurbished paddle program, and they said they might be willing to help us out with those for the prizes next year. But one of my realizations in this is my dream is to get a website that has information about from the viewpoint of, I'm from University of Virginia and I'm thinking about this stuff. What is it? Yeah, what's this 90-miler thing? How do I get involved with it? And then would love ultimately to have a series of instructional short videos on there on here's how you get in your boat. Here's how you balance the boat. Here's what a forward stroke looks like. Here's what a draw stroke is. Here's how you steer that thing. A series of those. That's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's kind of a long-term goal that I have in mind or Joe and I have in mind of how do we put some infrastructure on this so that the folks from Zavrel can walk down to their local college and have some resources to say, hey, if you're interested in this, here's some information about it.
There's a community college just south of Grayling. Those boys should be like and girls. So
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments? I'm not sure how long you guys wanted to run this, but I feel like
am
a lot of the topics.
happy that we got to an hour, and now we're over an hour, and this is beyond my expectation when planning the virtual conversation. So this is great.
You should know that Terry and I are in the park.
Yeah, I knew I was pretty safe when I asked you guys that it wouldn't be boring. So yeah, thank you guys. Adam, yeah.
Yeah, could I just jump in with a comment on something? Sorry, my video was off as well. Cooking dinner, listening to great conversation. Love this. It's perfect for our program right now. Ryan, who spoke, is actually sitting in our union all week, giving selfies to people that want to sit in a plastic boat to be like, join our paddling club. And the hope is, right, our mission at SUNY Potsdam is like building community. I think that's part of our mission. And hopefully from there, somebody's going to end up racing, paddling, finishing the 90-miler, pit crewing for the 90-miler, just being engaged with this awesome community we have. So one feedback from our students who've been doing this, and we've been in the 90s since about 2008. We've been running a C4 in there, and the past 2 years we picked up a little bit of traction. So we're hoping to build on that. Is just some recognition at these races, like the Seneca Monster. Our C4, they came home like, we almost beat Paul Smith. We were so close to that. They were like so amped, and they're so amped to get back on the water right now. But they didn't get any recognition at that race for being close. And not that everybody needs a trophy these days or that sort of thing, but I think just a little bit of prop to these college students that are just putting and just one other comment, because I love the conversation. I love this whole thing about like varsity athletes in high school. This is a way for them to compete. I have students that didn't even participate in varsity sports in high school. I mean, they don't even know what it's like to train for something, and yet they can finish the 90-miler. So that's where we're coming from down here or up here. And we do have a great support system up here. We've got GRB, we've got Gene and John. They've given us boats. GRB Max is going to give us all sorts of boats. They don't even know that yet. Kristen's going to let Max know that. But yeah, we're super pumped to be part of this whole process, and I just wanted to, yeah, that's it.
The Seneca Monster, that's definitely an important point. Terry and I did touch on that last year, is that, the awards process was kind of um, flaky, hit and miss or something at the end. Like all the excitement's in like the paddle giveaway, and then we weren't really even thinking about like, oh, the race results happen. So that is definitely an iterative improvement for that race that I think could and should happen, is a better award ceremony, celebrate all the colleges that participated through the whole season, give away the trophy and all that, and just recognition is important. So no, I think that's a really good point.
Something
Well,
that
I
I
think
also think is really cool about the Collegiate Point series is also how much it like you get like shot in the foot if you have an all male boat. So it really encourages mixed racing. And I think that that's and like obviously I'm biased, but that like I really appreciate having more women in the sport, and I think it's awesome to make sure that you're getting strong women in all of your boats as well.
Yeah, I'm biased too. I want more women in our sport because there's just too many men. But Adam, that's a great point. And I speak just from a demographic viewpoint, but that's a great point. Joe and I are just trying to get them to have actual results at the end of the race, and we're going to work up to making them get medals. So I'm with you. Would love to see that happen. Although I will say, if we have like an hour-long award ceremony after that race, that's not going to serve anyone well. So we're going to have to figure out a way to do it well.
Pick up.
Something that I did was I reached out to Eric Jones, who runs Paddle Stats, because he did this for the Slew Racers, and that's where I got this idea from. Where I reached out to him and I basically was like, hey, I have a number of racers. Would you make, like, they've done maybe one or two races? Would you make them a page? And a lot of our racers got really excited about being like, oh my God, like my results exist and I can go onto this like page and see these are the races that I've done and these are my results. And people get super stoked about it. I get super stoked about it. And so that's something that that like his email is on that website, and if you give him the names of your racers, he will absolutely make them pages, because he's super in support of encouraging young people in sports.
I just put the URL for Paddle Stats in the chat there for those who don't
Awesome.
know.
Thank you,
Huge
Dylan.
repository of past race results going back to, I think, the 19th. I mean, it's not complete going back to the 1930s, but there are results in there from the
Yeah,
30s.
it's a pretty extensive database there.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for a great conversation. And I believe, Joe, you were recording the conversation. We'll find a place to make it available. Sniper currently doesn't have a YouTube channel, but maybe this will be our first record. So, yeah, thanks again. I think our
Start
next
making hype videos for races and throw them on there.
I think our next conversation, I know our next conversation is April 4th, and that is the General Clinton question and answer session with Phil Millspaw and Jeff Pedersen. So I hope to see you guys there.
Thank you so much for hosting, Dylan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
See y'all.